are week 7, one more week to go after this week, and we are just starting InDesign. I hope that some of you have gotten a head start this week. I know we're kind of doing a transition from Illustrator to InDesign, and there's some overlap because I wanted to make sure you had enough time to finalize your movie posters and to get those peer reviews in. So today I just want to give you a tour similar to what we did for Photoshop and Illustrator of InDesign, just sharing my screen, showing you around, and then answer any questions that you have, and then just be open for any wrap-up questions, anything that would help you to finish out the semester and to make sure that you have the tools that you need to successfully complete all the assignments to date. And as I was saying, you have till a week from tomorrow, next Friday, which is July 31st, to turn in anything that is late, that you're unhappy with your grade or the score that you've received to date. I just ask that when you resubmit it, that you also send me an email that just lets me know, this is late, first time I'm turning it in, or I made some changes and I wanted to have you look at it again. You guys are welcome at any time to ask me for feedback, specifically if there's something that you're not happy with and you just want to know what you could do to improve it. Shoot me an email and I'm happy to help you in that way as well. How many of you have had a chance to watch the Terry White video for InDesign yet? Totally fine if you haven't. Okay, well that's actually good because I'm going to give you a very basic overview and then watch that video. It's a little bit longer, but it will literally tell you everything you need to know. InDesign kind of throws a wrench into what you've learned to date as far as the Adobe software, and Photoshop and Illustrator, they work fairly similarly, where you've got objects or text that kind of float on an artboard and you can move them around very easily. They're just loose and free-flowing, and they do their job very, very successfully. InDesign comes in and it's kind of a whole new ball game, and it's deceiving because the interface looks very similar, and it's got that Adobe trademark organization of toolbar on the left and your panels on the right, but all of a sudden instead of artboards you're working with pages, and that's because InDesign is software, the right tool for the job for creating multi-page publications. So you're in pages now instead of artboards. And then the other big difference is instead of your photographs or your piece of vector art or your text floating around on the page, everything is now has to be contained. It has to be in a frame. So you've got object frames and you've got text frames. And it gets a little tricky and hard to remember because you grab your move tool, your black arrow or your white arrow, and you just want to grab something and move it, or you just want to copy and paste something, and now you have to work with boxes and you have to make sure the right box is selected, and it's just a little bit different. So that's the main real difference to consider when you're working with InDesign. But the Terry White video, it's a fantastic overview. I mean, it's a 50-minute video and you get InDesign 101 and you're ready to go. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll move you guys up here to my other monitor. So it looks like I'm looking at the clouds, but I'm looking at you guys. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can see my InDesign window. Just make it not look like a million things. So you're going to go with desktop number 1, share. All right, are you guys all able to see InDesign right now? It should just be a black home screen. Move all of this Zoom stuff out of the way. Okay, so I have a couple things open already, but this is the start window. This is the home window. This is what comes up when you first open InDesign. And because I'm in InDesign all the time, it has a whole bunch of recent files that it's showing. The first time you open it, it will not have all of these, at least not yet. And then when you go to create new, exactly the same as what we've seen in Photoshop and Illustrator, you've got a new document window that gives you all kinds of options. And it has print defaults, web defaults, mobile defaults, with my favorite thing, all the templates that are available for free, which are a great inspiration, a great starting point, especially when you're working with publications that are going to print that need a very specific size or a very specific set of margins. These are a great place to start. So just know they're here. Again, your units of measurement, you know me, I always want to change everything to inches. And then instead of artboards, like I was saying, you're going to see pages. So that's a main big difference. The other thing is facing pages. So we did not talk about this yet. I'm having deja vu because I talked to my last class about this so recently. So facing pages, what that is, let me find a magazine. I'll be right back. I know a million of them somewhere. Actually, I'll use this book. Okay, so what facing pages is basically any multi-page publication has pages that face each other. So you know, you've got your left page and your right page, they face each other. When you set up your document in InDesign, if you're doing just something that's a double-sided something like the business card, you don't need them to be facing. You've got a front and a back. But when you're doing something that is a newsletter or a magazine, you're going to want to see facing pages because you're going to want to work on your document in what's called a spread. So it's a book magazine is a 2-page spread. And you want them to see what it looks like when you're working on them facing each other. So you can design continuous visual work across the pages. So that makes sense to everybody? So that little box right there is something that you're going to want to check on and off depending on the document that you're creating. If you forget and you create a document that was meant to not be facing pages, you can turn it off once you get in there. And I'll just show you what that looks like. I'm going to leave it on. I've only added 2 pages to my document, and I'm just going to go ahead and create it so that you can see. So it has put page 1 as a right page and page 2 as a left page. You can't actually see them facing because there's only 2 pages. But in the pages panel, let me just add some. Now you can see facing pages. So we've got a 2-page spread or you've got a single page. So the flip side of that, like I was saying with the business card, is if you're just doing a 2-page and you don't want them facing, you can just set it up with facing pages turned off and it will just stack them rather than putting one to the right and one to the left. Does that make sense to everybody? This is, instead of artboards, it's pages. So that is one of the main differences when working with InDesign. Any questions so far? You guys all follow that? Yeah? Okay, good. So now that I have a document open, it's empty. You can see the very familiar Adobe layout. You've got your toolbar on the left. You've got all of your panels on the right. You've got a control bar across the top. Exactly the same as everything that we've learned so far. They're just all going to work a little bit differently because they're working to this is a tool for creating publications. Your workspace presets are here, and I encourage you guys to just go with Essentials or Essentials Classic, but also to just check them out and see. I have a custom one because there are certain panels that I use on the regular basis, and these are the only ones I want to see. I don't want to see a bunch of extra stuff. All of the panels live under window, and you can turn them on and off as needed. Same with the toolbar. There are the little arrow to the bottom right where you can hold it down and find extra tools. That should be something that you're very familiar with. Your selection tools, the same. You've got your direct select tool and your selection tool. The main difference, you've got a rectangle tool and a frame tool, which these are what hold your content. So anytime you place something into InDesign, it's in a shape. So this, you know, what was a shape for Illustrator, but this now called a frame. So this photo, if I change, this photo exists inside of this rectangle. So if I change the size of the rectangle, it's not the photo that I'm changing the size of or the shape of, it's the actual frame itself. Does that make sense? If I want to work with the photo, I've got to use the direct select tool. And then can you guys see the golden kind of orange frame that comes up behind? This is the photo behind it, but it's inside of this box. So it's a big difference. It's really cool because you don't have to crop, you don't have to mask, you don't have to do the things that you do in Photoshop or Illustrator to control the shape of the photo. But you're a little more, well, you're not even really that restricted to the shape of your frame, because you can use your pen tool to edit it like a vector shape. And you can add round corners to it. You can add a whole, you know, concave curve to it. And then I've got my frame guides turned on, so you can see that my text also lives in frames, only these are text frames. So you've got an object frame and a text frame. Can you guys see that as well? So instead of text just sitting on an artboard, it's in a frame, which is fantastic for a publication, because you want to be able to work with your columns and to line stuff up and to make everything look amazing. And I can show you an example of a multi-page publication. Let me open. I had ones for you to show you guys that's a real, like, as publication-y as it gets. Go away. And I might have to, let me see if it, let me know if it shows up. Somebody with who I can hear, let me know if it opens. Let's see here. I saw it earlier. Okay. You can still see my InDesign window, right? Okay. So this is a multi-page publication. It has 26 spreads, 49 pages. This crazy 3-page spread is a fold out. So there's like an extra kind of fold out to this magazine, but you can see how amazing it is to work with frames in this case, because everything can be lined up and contained and just really organized in a beautiful way. The other thing that is of note for InDesign, and why you always want to use InDesign when you're creating publications, is master pages. Your master, anything that you put on your master page is going to show up on any page to which a master page is assigned. So can you see in the pages panel how now there's a little square on each of my pages? And do you see this little A in the top right? That means that master page A has been applied to all of these pages. If you want not to have a black, square or whatever your item is on all the pages, you can drag no master page to whatever page you like, and then just have your master pages appear on the rest of the pages. So one of the things with master pages that I've done 1,000 times is I will forget and start designing directly on the master page, and then that content appears on all of the pages. Not a huge deal, you just copy and paste it where you need it. But this is a fantastic way to add page numbers, to add a footer, to add a folio, to add anything that you want to show up on every page of your publication or repeatedly within your publication. So that's another fantastic feature of InDesign that's not available in Illustrator and Photoshop, because this one's made for publications. Let me stop there because I really want you guys to remember the main differences, because those are what get people hung up every time. Working with the frames, working with pages instead of artboards. You can't just drop your cursor and start typing. It's never going to let you. You've got to drop your cursor into a text frame, or you've got to use your cursor to create a text frame by clicking and dragging, and then adding text. So you know, it's different. It's different than it was in Illustrator and Photoshop, and it's hard to remember. But yeah, just clicking and adding text is not going to work. You can create simple vector objects. The pen tool works the same as Illustrator. The pencil tool works the same as Illustrator. But the more complicated the artwork, the bigger your file is going to get, and it's going to start to really tax your RAM. One cool thing that you can also do is copy and paste simple vector drawings from Illustrator into InDesign, should you want to, and then you can change the color of them. You can make edits to them. If it's a complex vector illustration, InDesign will actually say, you can't paste it, but we'll place it for you. And I want to show you what that means, because placing artwork directly into your file is something that you're going to want to do for the business card, and then also for the ad, where you guys are going to recreate this ad. Just kind of from looking at it, you'll be able to download the assets, which are 2 photos and a logo, and then you will create the rest. So you will be creating, you'll be using the line tool to create a line, the rectangle tool to create rectangles. Your swatches panel works the same as it did in Illustrator, where you can create and add swatches, create and add colors. So you guys will be recreating this, but let me show you how you place something. So here is page 2 of my faux business card. And under File, I always like to have my selection tool in place when I go to place something, rather than my text tool, because you can inadvertently place a graphic into a text box right in the middle of your text, which is not something that you usually ever want to do. I've done it by accident a million times. So I could just hit V, get my selection tool, and then under File, it's Place, which is Command D, which is basically like where my hand ends up resting a lot of times when I'm working in InDesign. And that's going to bring up a window where you can go and find some artwork to put into your, I'm going to use this logo that I'm supposed to be working on pretty soon. And you just select, it's going to give you the option to place, you can place pretty much any art file, you know, a PNG, a TIFF, a JPEG. You can place PDFs, you can place Illustrator files, .ais, you can place text files, and you can find a Word doc and just place a whole Word doc worth of text. I'm going to place a logo. So now you can see that my selection tool is loaded, and I've got a preview of the logo that I want to place. If I just click once, it is going to place the logo at 100% of its original size. So I'm going to do that once so you guys can see what that looks like. I'm just clicking once, and there it is. There's the logo in all its glory at 100%. So I'm going to delete it, hitting delete, and do Command D again, reselect it. Now, if I want to very specifically put this logo on my top margin, and I want to drag it out so that it's only, you know, what is that, 1.25 inches, it's telling me that that's 48% of original size, which is awesome, because as a rule, you probably don't want to place something too far over 100%, or you're going to lose quality. And once I drag it out and let go, it places it at that size. So now I've got this logo in. You can see it automatically gave me an object frame to work with. If I want to size it up and down, it's just a matter of dragging it. There's a trick. Let's see here. So it's a matter of just dragging it out. I hold Shift and Command or Shift and Control when I'm sizing things so that it sizes it proportionally and it sizes the frame as well as the artwork. If I just grab and pull it out, it's only gonna size the frame rather than the artwork on the inside. You can change the size of your frame, and then under Object, that is where you can get it to fit your frame however you would like. And there's all of these options, and I recommend you play with them until you kind of recognize what they mean. I want to fill the frame with that logo proportionally. So I'm going to select this one, and it's going to fill it. It works the same in reverse. If I were to make it smaller and then do the same, fill proportionally, it'll make it smaller. If I don't hold down Shift and I just hold down Control or Command, it's going to size it disproportionately. You can see it either stretches it or squishes it. Holding down Shift allows it to be proportional. So play with these things. It's a lot of finessing and a lot of kind of trial and error when you're working with graphics. But that's how you place an object. It would be the same as if I put a photo in here or an Illustrator vector file. Whatever I placed would work the same for this little, this little piece of object art. Now, when I grab my direct select and I select the logo itself, you can check your control panel will give you all kinds of details about it. The size of the logo itself. This is the percentage at which it's placed at. Whether it's rotated or not, all of the things. Any questions about placing artwork into InDesign? Command D, pick a piece of art and just get it in there and play with it. Move it around with your direct select or your selection tool, size it up and down within the frame tool with your direct select tool just to see what happens. Try sizing it proportionally and disproportionately, holding down Shift and Command or Shift and Control on a PC, and just practice with placing that artwork. I let you guys know I was also going to show you how to place text. So it's Command D, the very same key command, but you can actually select a Word doc. And when you do that, you're going to get a little bit of a different preloaded cursor, which shows that you have text. And again, you can either click once and it's going to go margin to margin from wherever your cursor is down, but it's going to fill margin to margin. It's giant, sorry, because this is a business card. I should actually take it into let me take it into this one that we created so we can have a full page to work with. Okay, glossary. Okay, load it up. So it must have a page break. Let's see here. I'll make it so you guys can see it. All right, so kind of boring text because it looks like it's just a list of stuff. But can you guys see this red plus sign at the bottom right? That means there's more text. So it's called overset text. So that means that there's text beyond what can be filled in this text frame. When you're working with a multi-page publication, you just click on that and it reloads your cursor, and then you can hold down Option and just keep clicking and fill every last. I wish this Word doc was organized better as but it's just like one word per thing. It's bizarre. Let me try. All right, so I have text blocks basically on every page now. So here's an interesting thing. If I were to, let me delete this. So now I've got an empty text box here. My text frame is still here. Let's say I want to place, I've got existing text frames that I'm working with. So whether it's, text boxes that are already here, maybe I've created, or I'm swapping out some existing text. if you click on the text frame before you fill your cursor, let me see if I can find a Word doc that's not quite so hard to work with. I think maybe this one is a normal text doc. So if you click directly into an existing text box, which one did I do? This one? It will fill an existing text box rather than creating a new one. Does that make sense? And because this text box is continuing to all of the pages, it should overflow automatically, except there's not enough text. I'm picking terrible examples to show you guys. Let me find, I know one that's really long. Let's do this one. All right, come on, load it up. This one is really, really long, and it's for a book that I'm working on that's actually like 160 pages in InDesign. It's been a really cool project, except that the client, who I told at the very beginning, if you're going to do Kindle, we should decide that up front, because Kindle has so many rules of how you set up your file, and we want to do all of that up front before we lay the whole thing out. And he absolutely did not want to use Amazon, had kind of like a hang up with Amazon. So we laid the whole thing up as a book that was going to be printed. And then guess what happened? Decided he wanted to do a Kindle. So I'm having to redo the whole thing. But anyways, my cursor is now loaded with a big fat book worth of text. And if I click over an existing text box, it should just fill it, except it didn't because I messed up. Hold on. Yeah, so that's been quite the project, and InDesign is absolutely amazing for it, because I set up the original book file that was going to be just for print, and also a PDF to be used on his website. And now that we're doing Kindle, I have to change the page size, because Kindle works with something similar to an 8.5 by 11, and then you have to actually import from Word, which is a graphic designer's worst nightmare. But with InDesign, you can do this layout adjustment, and you enable layout adjustment. You allow it to change the size of your font, and you click all these buttons, and then you say, create an alternate layout, and it will resize all of your pages, the content of every page, and kind of ballpark it to what needs to happen in order to transition everything from one size to another. And then you just have to go in and fine tune it. Okay, my cursor is now loaded with a ton of content. I'm going to click it over this existing text frame, and it's going to fill it, and then it's going to overflow automatically onto all of our text boxes that we created. So that was just a little illustration of kind of how cool that is. Do you guys want to see the book? To just kind of see, it doesn't have facing pages, but I think the thing that's really cool, and it just makes knowing InDesign 100% worth it. It is the right tool for the job. Is, you know, the control you have over your paragraph styles, your character styles, you know, your headings, your text blocks, everything. So look at how crazy my pages panel is. I actually have 2 sets of the book going on at once, the original size and then my new 8.5 by 11 size, which allows me to compare side by side each page. So here's my original, and I think it was like a 6 by 9, everything just laid out beautifully and perfectly. You can see the text threads, which show the first text frame, how it's connected to the next text frame. And then at the next chapter, it starts over. But everything was super perfect. And then we had to change it, the whole size. So side by side, here is what InDesign has done for me. Pretty good. I mean, let's see, let's go to one. I've got to go in and fuss with the margins a little bit, but it got all the same content on the same page. It changed the size of the text slightly. It's hard to tell because we're going from different percentages. to get it to fit in the window. Let's see here. Oops. 50%. 50%. But what a powerful tool. Like, I'm always in awe of InDesign, especially when you're doing something, you know, that's multiple pages. And I just really have a thing for books and magazines. So all I did last night, I was like, all right, I'm just going to run the converter. I'm going to run layout adjustment and see what happens. And this is what it did. And I'm not super unhappy with it. It's a good place to start, and it's better than having to start completely over and, you know, create a whole new document with a totally different page size. So that's kind of an overview of InDesign and all of its magical qualities. I'm going to move you guys right here so I can see you all. Does anyone have something specific they would like me to show you in InDesign, so that you can go into this last week and a half and know how to do specifically what you're looking to know how to do? Anyone? No? You guys are all good with just getting in there and playing with it? All right, cool. Was that enough of kind of an overview? I know it's a ton. I really encourage you to watch Terry White's video. Can you guys see do you see my desktop? Do you see YouTube now? So this is the video. It's linked in our module, InDesign overview. Can you see Canvas now? Yeah, okay. So this basics video, part 4, the part 4 tab of the InDesign overview. This is the video. Here it is in InDesign. It's 50 minutes, but it really is everything you need to know. You guys could go out there and create a magazine after watching this. So he's amazing. He's really a great instructor, and he's got all kinds of videos if you guys ever need more. So yeah, that's InDesign. You're going to be creating a business card, a 2-sided business card, and then you're going to recreate just by looking at a picture of this ad. Were we in class, you would be using a ruler and a type ruler that allows you to like measure the type and everything on a printed ad, but we're doing this online, so you could print it out from the download file and use that if it helps you to have something printed. This is actually how I learned graphic design. I had 2 different mentors give me things printed and a ruler and said, here, go create this, you know, recreate it as close as possible. And it's a great way to learn. So I'll be here if you guys need help with that. But that's it for finishing out our class, which is crazy. That was such a fast speed. So week 8 is up. Let me just make sure we've got one more review. Yeah. Okay. So that said, does anyone have questions about, I'm going to stop the share so we go back to our window. Does anyone have questions just in general for finishing out the semester? Any comments, anything that you want to talk about while we're here together? Like I said, we have our last Zoom next week. But yeah, we're down to the wire. So I want to make sure you guys have any questions, all your questions answered so that you can finish strong. But you guys are all doing amazing. I'm really proud of you guys. So if not, you're excused. I got everybody marked as here, and I'm always around if you need extra help. All right.